Okay, we will go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone to panel 1 on Iran's Look East policy. My name is Mohamad Hamas ElMasry. I am a professor of media studies at the Doha Institute, and it is my honor and pleasure to be moderating this session with a panel of very prestigious speakers. The format will be as follows. We have 3 presentations. Each presentation will be 15 minutes or less, and the organizers have emphasized the importance of staying on schedule, so I will try to keep the speakers to 15 minutes. That will be followed, the 3 presentations will be followed by a brief question and answer session. I want to encourage everyone to please ask brief questions so that we can get as many in as possible. And I want to remind everyone to kindly turn your phones off or put them on silent at this time. I will introduce our 3 speakers as they prepare to take the podium. Our first speaker is Diana Galeeva. She is an academic visitor at the University of Oxford and a non-resident fellow with the Gulf International Forum. She completed her bachelor's at Kazan Federal University in Russia, and she also holds an MA from Exeter University and a PhD from Durham University. She's the author of Qatar, The Practice of Rented Power, and Russia and the GCC, The Case of Tatarstan's Para-Diplomacy. She's also a co-editor of Post-Brexit Europe and the UK, Policy Challenges Towards Iran and the GCC States. The title of her talk this morning is Iran's Look East Policy and the Emerging New World Order. Diana.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much, first of all, for this kind opportunity to be here to present this prestigious conference, and my special thanks to Professor Mihran Kamrava for this kind invitation. And I would like to say that his scholarship always driven my research interest, and thank you so much for all your work, which really benefit a lot the Gulf studies. So the fundamental transformations of the world order have been started by the Ukraine war, including the rebalancing of the power alignments and policies, have also strengthened the significance of widespread Look East policy among various actors. And yet it has been captured by Iran's side as well, and repeatedly restated in the anticipation of US withdrawal from the JCPOA and following the elections of President Raisi in 2021. So Iran's attitude has been echoed by announcement from China and Russia that they will set, quote, as an example of a responsible world order and play a leading role, which is often interpreted as a seeking to reduce economic independence with the West, and specifically to redirect energy deals from the West towards the East. Politically, the policy has contributed to the expansions of bloc-to-bloc cooperation among non-Western countries, especially with nations from BRICS and Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So this paper, which I put the research question for myself, is looking at how Iran's collaborations with, especially I look at the case studies China and Russia, under the Look East policy challenges the liberal world order, and how a new world order may emerge from these alliances. In order to start discussion, I suppose we have to pay attention to the main elements of the liberal order suggested to the famous Eikenberry's work on the liberal Leviathan. And the first element is the commercial liberalism, and capitalism and market established economic interdependence, shared interest, joint gains, and incitements for global cooperation. The second element is democratic peace studies theory, which built on the liberal world order, and the third is the liberal institutions, so meaning that the role of institutions and international law are consequences of liberal communities that build rule-based obligations and expectations between them. But what I found the most interesting discussion about the Eikenberry's possibility of breakdown of the liberal order, where he suggests about they need to entail a complete collapse of order, but rather than he focuses on the possibilities of multi kind of these lateral facets based on the regional orders and which will follow relatively distinct and divided and competitive geopolitics spheres. So therefore, we could argue that from a lot of discussions of the scholars that this will be based on the rival poles, as may emerge that have already been identified not simply on the state level, but also through increasingly interconnected relations, especially between them and Iran with Eastern so-called countries, including China, and also adding Russia, which been working hard to kind of to counter this order, which was based on the West and then Pax Americana. So what we will have to discuss about the kind of order which is emerging, and there are a lot of discussions about what is next. From liberal moment to multi-balance, power of dynamics, clash of civilization, another well-known theory, the coming anarchy. So the new world order, from my understanding, and to put Iran's look east policy better can be understood through the Huntington's, the West and the rest logic. And his especially thesis about the clash of civilization is often understood by non-Westerns as a concept, shorthand for the former, and therefore is ultimately a theoretical paradigm which can be transformed into the tool for practical ideological goals. But we also know that over these years, Huntington theory have been under critique very much. So my paper argues that we need to apply the Huntington's analysis as a civilization viewed as a broader cultural entity, where he suggests that 7 or 8 main civilizations include, but also there are some limitations, and within our context, the essential point about the existing groups of countries certainly has lineage, and adapting the words of Iranian leadership, we can conclude about the Oriental powers, including Russia, China, India, and the rest. But as, again, I would like to stress that I just focused on the case studies as China and Russia, as an alternative order might also be needed in analysis in their foreign policies. So in this regard, just briefly, I would like to focus on China, Iran, Russia nexus, and the importance of these alliances. So why China is important for Iran? Firstly, Iran's look to East policy and China's march west seem to be maturely beneficial moves. Second, it has been also growing role of China versus declining Western powers, as Chinese military, economic, and political weight is now able to revile and arguably undermine Western power and influence. So therefore, Iran's choice of China was calculated as being the dominant alternative power, as well as fitting the general direction of the East, look East policy. Here, with regards to Russia, in this policy, there are many combinations of narratives, especially which brought currently Russia and Iran together. But from the kind of theoretical point of view and how I tried to put it in the paper, I think this kind of the identity of West toxification really unites both countries, and we could see Here, examples, for example, is President Ibrahim Raisi visited Moscow in 2022. In the shadow of build-up of Ukraine crisis, he stated that he called for a closer collaboration between two countries, stating about the pressure from US and saying that just like you, we have also stood up against US sanctions from 40 years ago. And he continued that today's exceptional circumstances require significant synergy between our two countries against US unilateralism. So we can conclude that this alliance has become crucial to building policies aiming to challenge the existing world order. However, as we've seen, rather than really suggesting a new elements, this partnership have largely been based on the accepted desire to challenge the well-established elements of liberal order as clarified by Eikenberry. So from my kind of findings, what this emerging world order or challenger can be presented. So first element should be considered as opposing democracy versus autocracy. The second is about the ongoing expansion of bloc-to-bloc cooperation, which challenges the kind of well-established Western blocs like EU or NATO, and the growth of regional partnerships through BRICS, for example, or Shanghai Cooperation. Also, Ukraine war has also brought bilateral relations to a new level in this dynamics. And finally, which for me especially was more interesting to follow over these years, it's how these relations develop in order to challenge less economic connectivity from the West. Is in one of the panels also Russia and China was identified as the two most sanctioned states, and in a way it's also helped them to follow new policies in this regard. So what is the ongoing dynamics in this, we can see that Russia and Iran were trying to sort more closely link their banking financial systems. They have begun to use their national currencies for energy and trade payments. In December, for example, 2022, Russia's second largest bank, VTB, became the first Russian bank to offer money transfer in Iranian rials. So also another very interesting trend in terms of de-dollarization, we could also follow here to really avoid stringent sanctions imposed by the West. One of the examples can be here that in the recent wave of sanctions by G7 countries resulted by Elvira Nabiullina, head of the Central Bank of Russia, she actually straight away traveled to Iran to discuss the possibility of further collaborations in bilateral trade, banking cooperation, expanding currency transactions between Russia and Iran. So, to conclude, to consider Iran's Look East policy seems particularly valuable, not solely in understanding the course of its foreign policies objectives, but also in seeing how and why some policies attempt to challenge the well-established elements of the world order. And within the theoretical context, this fits especially towards the old, it seems no one really better to create this debate, liberalism versus constructivism. So we should rely on more ideas of Huntington's logic behind constructivist ideas of identity here. But what really is, I think, and my paper finds interesting, that Iran, Russia, and China, they further contribute to their Oriental powers. They challenge kind of democracy versus autocracy. Liberal international institutions are challenged by regional and efforts to avoid economic interdependence from the West. Consequently, despite these complex dynamics and important shifts in the short and even mid-run, the international power structure will likely remain based on liberal world order. To imagine a longer lasting, to distill into something more coherent and assertive, it remains to be seen where really current priorities can cohere and over time into a genuine alternative world order. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm looking forward for discussion.
Thank you so much, Diana, for that really interesting presentation, and also thank you for keeping us on schedule. Our next speaker is Olivia Glombitza. She is an adjunct professor of international relations at the Autonomous University of Barcelona, UAB, and the Open University of Catalonia, both in Barcelona, Spain. She's a fellow for the project titled Reconfiguration of Transnational Actors and Elites in the MENA region, based at UAB, and also the project titled Sectarianism, Proxies, and Desectarianization, based at Lancaster University in the UK. Her research is situated at the intersection of domestic politics and foreign policy and focuses on relations of power, ideology, and identity, and symbolic politics more broadly, but particularly in relation to the Islamic Republic of Iran. Olivia's presentation is titled The Islamic Republic of Iran's Approach to the East, Symbolic Politics and Popular Culture in Iran's Foreign Policy. Olivia.
Thank you so much. I just speak for me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. I'm very happy to be here. Welcome to all of you. And first of all, I would like to thank the Arab Center for Research and Policy Studies, and particularly the Iranian Studies Unit for hosting us here. And my gratitude goes in particular to Hamida Dorzadeh and Mehran Kamrawa. So the paper, as Mohammed presented, is titled The Islamic Republic of Iran's Approach to the East, Symbolic Politics and Popular Culture in Iran's Foreign Policy. In this sense of popular culture, the object of study of my paper is a song that's called Salam Farmande. Some of you will know it. And its textual and visual presentation abroad. As we are aware, and this is also why we're all here, the Islamic Republic is entertaining ever-expanding relations with countries of the global south. And in this sense, my paper examines the ways in which the Islamic Republic of Iran seeks to build bridges with its neighbors to the east, and argues that the Islamic Republic is supplementing its foreign policies with symbolic politics that aim at building and strengthening their ties based on a common ideational foundation and a common worldview. These strategies go beyond a mere engagement at government level, but also seeks to engage with the local population. So for the purposes of fomenting ties in tandem with political relations, expressions of popular culture, and here translated versions of Salam Farmande, are particular cases in point. The song had been commissioned by the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei himself already in 2015. He had ordered, and I quote, a beautiful, influential, and meaningful song which makes kids sing it when they're walking in their alley or when they go to school. Accordingly, the audience domestically is particularly young children. That's the so-called 90s generation, kids that were born in the 1390s according to the Persian calendar. So that would be kids born in the 2010s. The Islamic Republic has organized a number of promotional events where the song has been performed on television, live in stadiums, but also in schools, for example. However, the song has also been widely translated into different languages. You can find it in Arabic, in Urdu, in Turkish, in Kashmiri, and other languages. So therefore, the song is not only supposed to speak to a domestic audience, but also to an audience abroad. And this is what we're interested in the connection to my paper. And in the analysis, I focus on two important neighbors of the Islamic Republic, that's Iraq and Pakistan. And both of them prevent relevant case studies for research because they're obviously two important neighbors of the Islamic Republic, entertaining important economic, political, social relations, and the Islamic Republic shares a border with each of them. And these borders are adjacent to two Iranian provinces, Kurdistan to the west of the country, and Sistan and Baluchistan to the east. Both highly contested territories, and you might know that there are independence and protest movements flaring up time and again. There's also border activities that constitute a concern for the Islamic Republic. So entertaining good relations with both countries is fundamental. The Shia communities in Iraq and Pakistan provide important points of entry for the purpose of fomenting ties. And a forum for these, the fomenting of social ties, is offered, for example, through the Islamic Republic's cultural centers. And you might know that the Islamic Republic is having a number of cultural centers abroad. And they provide the Islamic Republic with a platform to promote Iranian culture, Iranian language, religion, but of course also its values and fundamental ideas. So with these cultural centers, the Islamic Republic is seeking to foster ties with countries abroad, and particularly with the citizens. I already mentioned the song, Salam Farmande. It translates to Hello Commander. Originally being written for a domestic audience, and particularly for the Iranian youth. And here the idea is to transmit to a generation that has not participated in any of the fundamental struggles of the Islamic Republic, such as the revolution or the Iran-Iraq war, fundamental ideas and values. So it is to familiarize the next generation with these ideas and values. And the Supreme Leader, being aware of the political relevance of cultural production, had ordered or had given the impulse for the song, as I had previously mentioned. So the idea to create an emotional connection and foment ties with its own citizens is reproduced at the foreign policy level, where cultural production, in the case of this paper, music, is used to create this connection between the Islamic Republic and its neighbors. So Salam Farmande has thus not only been widely disseminated at home, but also beyond the Islamic Republic's borders. And here, the Islamic Republic's cultural centers and affiliated groups have organized public performances and recordings. And since its first release, that was in 2022, in March 2022, the song has been translated in a number of different songs and has been disseminated abroad. So these songs are ultimately a form of symbolic politics, and that is, I mean here, immaterial forms of political action, and they serve, in the present case, to engage with the Islamic Republic's neighbors and to create connections at the political and social level. Music, in this case, thus, is afforded a political dimension and becomes a diplomatic tool. The paper approaches the case I'm studying from a constructivist perspective, as you might have guessed, and is based on an eclectic conceptual and analytical framework, and I'm drawing on theories and concepts of communication studies and cultural studies, as well as international relations. And in the paper, I'm analyzing the song's visual and textual discourse, and the role of cultural anchors, such as shared symbols, values, rituals, and heroes, and their potential to elicit pathos, that's emotional engagement, to appeal to the hearts of the Islamic Republic's neighbors. So in doing so, the paper seeks to contribute a comprehensive study of the ways in which cultural production, particularly music, supplements foreign policies by drawing on the Iraqi and Pakistani cases. In order to study this, the visual and textual discourse, the paper draws on visual rhetoric and rhetoric. And they both provide the starting point for the study of pathos, emotional engagement, and how it can be elicited through textual and visual materials. So for the purpose of this paper, rhetoric encompasses, therefore, the art of persuasion through language, through text. And visual rhetoric then encompasses the art of persuasion through visuals. And you will know pathos goes together with logos and ethos. In my paper, I'm focusing, however, on the concept of pathos, emotional engagement. The other two would be appealing to reason or persuasion through personality and stance. Focusing on pathos, though, the paper analyzes how emotional engagement is elicited through the lyrics of the song as well as through the images derived from public performances of it. And the performances of the song Salam Farmande themselves then become politically relevant spectacles in the context of this paper. Further concepts relevant for the analysis are, as previously mentioned, these concepts of shared cultural anchors, symbols, rituals, values, and heroes. And importantly, I draw on those symbols, values, rituals, and heroes that Iranians share with their Iraqi and Pakistani neighbors, and thus how they contribute to collective emotional engagement. Important to define a little bit the concepts that we're using. So symbol, what I mean here, is words, gestures, pictures, or objects that carry a particular meaning that is recognized as such by those who share the culture. Examples can include, amongst others, certain words, hairstyles, dress, flags, status symbols, etc. For the paper, important symbols and rituals constitute the ones that are connected to, for example, the Battle of Karbala or also Imam Hussein. Ritual, here I use it as a formal action following set and repeatable patterns that is expressive of communal values, meanings, and beliefs. Rituals are collective activities, and examples may include ways of greeting, paying respect to others, or also social and religious ceremonies. Heroes can be persons, alive or dead, real or imaginary, who possess characteristics that are highly prized in a culture and thus serve as models for behavior, for emulation, if you will. And together, symbols, rituals, and values, they express heroes, they express a culture's values. And these are broad tendencies, dichotomies, if you will, good versus evil. Coming to an end, I just want to give you a brief glimpse how this actually works. So how can emotional engagement be actualized? How can it be drawn out? And when it comes to the text of the song, this might happen through graphic vividness, figures of speech, emotional language. I'm angry, for example. I'm happy. Emotive abstraction, dramatic tension. This is one part, and the other part is the visuals. And through the visuals, emotional engagement can be elicited through what the images depict and what is depicted in the images. Just to say, images of war move us in a certain way, right? So in sum, the analysis of the paper demonstrates the different ways in which emotional engagement is elicited through the visuals and the lyrics in the Iraqi and Pakistani context, and makes it clear that the focus is particularly on shared symbols, values, rituals, and heroes derived from a shared ideological foundation and worldview, and the base of which is, in particular here, the Shia faith. I thank you very much for listening, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you so much, Olivia. I'm curious, just as I'm sure all of you are, to go to YouTube and listen to the song, but not now, after the session. Our last but not least, our final speaker in the panel is Professor Kadhim Hashim Niama. Professor Niama is Professor of Strategy and Political Science at Baghdad University. He previously served as Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of International Studies and the head of the Center for International Studies at the University of Baghdad, as well as Strategic and Regional Studies at Al-Bakr University in Libya. He holds BA, MA, and PhD degrees from the University of Wales School of International Politics and Strategy, and he's published many books and studies on international relations. Professor Niama.
للحديث في موضوع يشوبه كثير من الجدل والغموض والنقد والمدح.
We are going to talk about a topic that enjoys a lot of enigma. So the foreign policy of Iran since the Islamic Revolution had been depicted and described in different forms and ways as being realistic, pragmatic, idealistic, showing animosity, showing expansionism, and the descriptions have been different from one place to another. So the paper that I would like to present here aims to look at the different basic characteristics of Iranian foreign policy. So I have distributed the different characteristics of this policy as practical, ideological, tactical, and strategic. And the number that I've been able to score is more than 45. So we have in excess of 45 symptoms or traits of this policy, the policy of moving eastward. I have adopted a methodology whereby I decided to define the motives and the attractives. So there are motives on both sides when it comes to East and when it comes to West, when it comes to, Iran. So there are
تفاعل ما بين هذين الدافعين أو الدوافع والجواذب لكي يخرج التوجه إلى الشرق. النقطة الأخرى
So the other point that is very, very important indeed, moving east was not a continuous process. It is an ever-changing process in a change, or a continuity in a change. So we do depict these traits in this long journey. This journey that has not started only recently. No, it started during the Shah period. So the Shah thought of Japan as a progressive kind of country. So Shah wanted to emulate this kind of methodology. So that is why when we talk about dominance is one and domination. So Iran always seeks to rely on those spheres of influence and domination. So these motives, these points of attraction are moving on 4 levels. We have the domestic level, we have the regional and regional Middle East, and the near Middle East, or which is the Arab Gulf, and we have the international politics level. And you know what is happening on the international level. We have the sanctions, we have the isolation, and also misrepresentation or presentation when it comes to the Iranian foreign policy. We have also the American interest domination, and so on and so forth. The matter is very complex indeed, and it includes many, many factors. In the Middle East, we have the Arab policy as opposed to the Iranian policy. And here we're talking about a dichotomy between both of them. And we have some spheres or spaces of cooperation that manifests itself in many ways and forms. So this is the theme of the paper that I would like to present to you. ولقد تابعت كيف أن هذا التوجه مضى منذ رفسنجاني. So he's moving from Arabic to English. حتى الخميني كان لديه طريقة التفكير الخاصة ب East West, what we call neither East nor West. And after that, this concept had been modified as a result of the Iraqi war. And this is the core, as I see it. I might be mistaken, but I think this is the core of this pushing force towards the East. So I would like to say that when we talk about the East, we talk about many, many dimensions. We do not talk about one country. We can start with Russia, for instance. And after that, China. And we talk about Southeast Asia. We include also Japan, South Korea, Latin America, and also many countries such as African countries. So بمعنى آخر, so he's moving to English. So this is the best definition.
So it's your perception, what is East and what is West. And as we heard from the first lecture or from presentation, that the Iranian foreign policy wants to move in a wide spectrum, in a space wherever it wants to go there, under the impression, as we have had, it is the role of actorness, the role of civilization, the role of geographical power, location, the economic factor, oil, energy, and so on. So this is the whole thing. Now then, what I have done, I hope, yes, here it is at the back of me. I have listed these ideological and practical, tactical, and strategic factors that one can find, and I'm sure who wants to elaborate on this, he could find more than what I have come to discover. So on the ideological side, it is quite clear that the Iranian revolution, from the start, it was on ideological will. But this courage was not international, wasn't regional in the wider sense of the region, but is mainly direct to the West, to the Arab countries. For various reasons, this is not the point to elaborate. I'm quite aware because I was engaged in this period in the making of Iraqi foreign policy. So this is a very important thing, that there is يوجد ideological element in this strategy, in this policy. Number two, there is the concept of change against the status quo. The status quo, according to the Iranian perception, could be regional and could be international. You can't jump over the fence from regional to international, so you have to destruct from below going up. Therefore, they didn't go to Central Asia because there was a barrier. They moved to the west or southwest, to the Arab and to the Gulf countries. So this movement, the drive to change. Number two, they were anti-international system, not in our conception of international system, of the traditional European cultural, civilizational, historical 1648 Westphalia up to date with different forms. So here you have the ideological explanation that I think, yes, Khamenei, he has a saying that our system is against the West, and the West is against our system, against our values. So here you are. Either you accommodate yourself with the against, or you have to change it. So this is ideology. Now I come to some other point. Well, the psychological aspect. Going to the East gives confidence, self-reliance, faith in what you are doing, because in the West you never find this, and this is very important. A decision maker, he needs to be in a comfortable psychological position. Therefore, he would like, yes, I'm short of time. Five time, yes, I shall, I know takes me away. Okay, so excuse me. Let me come to since the time is short, let me come to the strategic or practical. Number one, I think it is the only practical choice, alternative in front of the Iranian foreign policy. All the doors are closed. Some of them are closed by the outsider, some of them closed by Iranian themselves. Number two, this trend, this policy is to benefit from all possible opportunities. And all opportunities are in the East, not in the West. This is number two. Number three, the East is the source of deterrence. Iran is secured not because of its comprehensive or practical military, but because of its means of deterrence. She has put hands on means to deter. And this is which, not ideologically, I'm talking about in military sense. So deterrence can be achieved through Russia, cooperation with Russia, with China, and South Korea. Number three, Iran is the most of the Middle East country which has comprehensive interest with the East, collectively or individually. Another point, going to the East is a leverage, rafi'a. It presses on both, on regional powers and on international powers. To bargain, a decision maker or a politician must be in a solid ground to bargain with alternatives. So here is a leverage. One of the leverages now, if you argue what is the reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Iran, is one of the motives, attractiveness, is this factor. And people came about Shanghai and BRICS as to pave, to mahidu, to pave, to facilitate, to yassiru, facilitator, musahilun, to go to this area. Number two, now I come to, yes, Iran, in dealing with the East, it has a leverage to bargain. First, it joins them to change the international system. Two, its economic power. Third, it is a means for have I some few minutes to go? 2 minutes. Well, presenting such a paper in 15 minutes is absolutely beyond mastership. After 60 years of lecturing and teaching, I find myself in an awkward situation, honestly. So to come to the tactical, let me jump, leave tactical. Let it to come to the negatives. Nobody has come to the negatives. These are the negatives. I'm reading them. First, Iran hasn't done anything, change places from the West to the East. Nothing has happened more. Number two, this policy is not based on clear strategic thinking. It is emotional. It is a safety belt to save the Iranian from the sanctions, so isolation, and so on. It is sort of image, self-image polishing, excuse the word, to revitalization, إحياء باللغة العربية, بعث, renaissance of Iran civilization and Iran political and strategical importance. Number two, it has become captive to soft power. أصبحت أسيرة للقوى الناعمة الصينية. Number 3, the future is decided by China. I know there is no treaty, there is no alliances, there's no alliance between them, but to tie yourself to the economics of China, this is very dangerous because China has many alternatives. Now China moves in Shanghai and BRICS without hindrances. China has more countries to attract her than Saudi Arabia going to East, Emirates is going to East, Iraq is going to East, and the agenda or the list widening broadly. Other point, Iranian planning is chained, limited by the East attitude or reaction to what Iran is doing. So here you are not liberating yourself, you are attaching yourself, you are tying yourself, chaining yourself to the East. It has deprived Iran from the investment opportunities. After the 1815, the nuclear deal, Rouhani was thinking of turning west. There are many evidences because the West is the source of technology, investment. So one of the negative things that Iran has deprived itself of EU. Now, to approach EU because of the Chinese barrier, China could use the break if Iran moves too far away from it. Another point which has been raised is that the national economy now has been very seriously damaged. And we know this in the Middle East. The Chinese product, the cheap products, and don't ask me about the quality, but it reaches the wider market. Now there is sort of, I stop. Give me 1 minute.
Yes, 30 seconds.
Yes, 1 minute. The other thing which I would like to say is that there is a sort of complaint that what the government has done is just to legitimize its power. It can breathe now because it has been all the years without oxygen freely to breathe. I do apologize for not going through all what I have got on the paper, but those who read Arabic, they are on the screen. And thank you very much for it. I do apologize if I overstepped my time.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Niama. We have about 10 minutes for Q&A. I ask that you kindly keep your questions brief and to the point. Identify yourself and also identify to whom your question is addressed. So please raise your hands. We have a question over here.
شكرا جزيلا للمحاضرين. عماد قدورة من المركز العربي. سؤال للدكتورة أوليفيا.
Olivia, you talked about something very important that nobody talked about, the popular culture and the popular discourse. You didn't have time, it seems, to explain how does this popular culture works in Pakistan and Iraq. My question is, have you taken into consideration that the popular discourse or culture from the point of view of a religious Shiite point of view and the nationalist Persian, that these countries, Iraq and Pakistan, have some sort of a resistance to this culture or discourse, although it may be successful and welcome amongst other sections in these countries. أسئلة أخرى؟
Harith Hassan,
حارث حسن.
Middle East Center. I have two questions. One question to Olivia. Do you have something to say about the receiving end, like the audience in Iraq, in Pakistan? How did they receive this Iranian supply of symbolic product? And a question to Dr. Kadhim. What I understood from what you said is that Iran's look East policy is tactical, is not it's tactical, it's not strategic. Because you kept talking about bargaining, Iran's opening to China, to Russia. The main goal is to bargain with the West. So is that what you mean? And in this sense, do you think if the door opened from the West, Iran will shift the way it looks, the side it looks at?
Other questions? We have one more. We'll take one more question.
Thank you for your presentations. I just had a question for Dr. Kadhim about what the potential consequences are if Russia loses the war against Ukraine. You said China is not a reliable ally for Iran, and also that although Russia and Iranian diplomatic relations have strengthened as well as military collaboration, it's not necessarily something that we can predict will be sustainable. So my question is more so, if Russia loses against Ukraine, what will this do for Iran's current position, and how will impact, similarly to the previous question, how will it impact its relations with other Western powers?
Okay, thank you. So we will go ahead and try to answer these. The first question, Olivia, I saw you writing it down, so do you want to go ahead and take that?
Great. Thank you for this, Ahmad. So if I understood you correctly, you're basically asking whether I've also taken into consideration the I made a note in Spanish. So now I got stuck, I shouldn't have. But it's basically the fine grain, right? A little bit the non-unity that exists here. So that basically to say it's not homogenous, right? So when I say Iraq and Pakistan, you're asking me whether I treat it as a homogenous case or whether I do introduce some balance. Is that correct? Right. Yeah, but this is the idea behind, right? And here, the paper is basically, it's particularly the Shia faith that is the fundament here of my analysis. So of course, yes, this is not, is not accountable for the whole country. Yes, indeed.
There was another question about how the song was received in Pakistan.
Exactly. Here I must say the disclaimer. It's not a study of reception in this case. I'm not studying how the audiences receive it, so I'm also not doing interviews with them, you know, to find out whether they are touched by the song or not. It is more a study of, you know, how the song has the potential through its visuals and through its text to elicit certain emotions based on these anchor points, you know, these symbols, values, rituals, and heroes.
Thank you. We had a question for Professor Niama about whether or not it's tactical or strategic.
I respond to the first question. The paper has all the four aspects of this going east: ideological, strategic, tactical, and pragmatic. One can't argue that one aspect is dominant over the. However, in decision making, sometimes you must take consideration of the existing situation which you are in. Therefore, I've said it is a policy of change in a continuity, not continuity in a change. Are you with me? The shape of continuity is composed of the series of changes. You find it even in under one president. Sometimes he moves forward, sometimes he retreats to the back. I hope I have satisfied your question. By the way, he's one of my students, so I'm quite pleased that he raises a question, and he's a doctor and researcher, not a student sitting, listening, obeying in the Arabic style. Now, let us go to the second question, the impact of Ukrainian war on Iran. I think one of the mastership of Iranian diplomacy, nobody has come across to it up to this point, is balancing. They try to balance all the time and try to find means and ways and spheres to balance. Approaching Russia and supporting against Iran, I think it has a hidden purpose. That's to push the US and the West to give more concession to the nuclear deal. I think so. I have always thought that the nuclear deal is behind Iranian going east, even day-to-day policy. I hope there are other impacts, but this is the basic one as far as I can respond to your question. Thank you for raising the question.
Thank you all for those interesting questions. Please join me in giving a round of applause to our wonderful speakers. And next on the conference agenda is a fan favorite lunch. So enjoy.
Thank you very much.